Coming up on Network Africa. Côte d'Ivoire issues arrest warrant for opposition presidential candidate Guillaume Soro. France says its first drone strike killed 7 fighters in Mali. Plus, the Democratic Republic of Congo's Ebola treatment centers get more military protection after attacks. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. The federal government of Nigeria has ordered the release of former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki and the owner of online media outlet Sahara Reporters Omoyele Sowore. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, says the decision to release them was in compliance with the bill granted the two by the court. A statement from the Attorney General's office says the AGF has reviewed the pending criminal charges against Colonel Dasuki and Mr. Sowore. The AGF says whilst the Federal High Court has exercised its discretion in granting bail to the defendants in respect of the charges against them, he is not unmindful of the right of the complainant and prosecution to appeal or further challenge the grant of bail by the court, having regards to extant legal provisions, particularly Section 169 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. Now, prosecutors in Côte d'Ivoire have issued an arrest warrant for next year's presidential candidate, Guillaume Soro. The former prime minister is accused of misusing public funds and trying to destabilize the country. Mr. Soro was due to return home to start his campaign, but his flight was diverted to Ghana as security forces stormed his party headquarters in Abidjan. The former rebel chief's scheduled return after a 6-month absence has raised tensions in the West African country, where a 2010 to 2011 election ended in deadly violence between rival supporters. Meanwhile, in neighboring Guinea, opposition parties have pledged to boycott legislative elections set for February 16 and prevent them from taking place in a dispute focused on the country's electoral roll. Opposition chief Selou Dialé Diallo said on Monday, after meeting with the heads of around 20 opposition groups, that they have all decided to not take part in the election. Guinea has been racked by rolling demonstrations sparked by concerns that President Alpha Condé plans to stay in office beyond the legally mandated 2 terms. Although 81-year-old Mr. Condé has not yet confirmed whether he plans to run again, his announcement last week of a new draft constitution sparked a fresh wave of accusations that he was planning to extend his rule. To security matters now, France has carried out its first ever drone strike during operations in Mali. In a statement on Monday, the French military command confirmed the strike took place on Saturday and at least 7 alleged fighters were killed. The strike comes 2 days after the French army announced it had finished testing the remotely piloted drones for armed operations. It has 3 drones based in Niamey, the capital of Niger. About 40 kilometers from the southern Egyptian city of Aswan, a swath of photovoltaic solar panels spread over an area of desert so large it can easily be seen from space. The development of the Benban solar plant is the latest step in a rapid expansion of Egypt's electricity supply and is also designed to anchor its renewable energy sector by luring in private sector developers and financial backers.
They are part of the Benban plant, one of the world's largest solar parks, following completion last month of a second phase of the estimated $2.1 billion development project. Designed to anchor a renewable energy sector by attracting foreign and domestic private sector developers and financial backers, the plant now provides nearly 1.5 gigawatts to Egypt's national grid and has brought down the price of solar energy at a time when the government is phasing out electricity subsidies. In 2013, Egypt was suffering rolling blackouts due to power shortages at aging power stations. 3 gigantic gas-powered stations with a capacity of 14.4 gigawatts procured from Siemens in 2015 turned the deficit into a surplus.
It is an amazing facility. It's not only creating power for Egypt, but it's also creating a lot of investment opportunities being divided into so many different smaller projects.
At Benban, developers visited by an IFC team last month raised the issue of a standoff over government demand that they collectively pay an extra 1.9 billion Egyptian pounds in infrastructure costs. There had also been some curtailment of supplies to the grid as they waited for new transmission lines to be added. But operations were generally doing well, and the Egyptian Electricity Transmission Company was paying on time. Solar irradiation is exceptionally good at Benban and running costs are low. Upkeep is largely limited to brushing the desert dust from the panels to maximize absorption.
So you don't need a lot of manpower working on here. You only need cleaning machines. This is operated by Benban manpower. And only manpower again for the maintenance, and that's all, which is not also a big amount of people.
However, the plant needs a storage system and still a key technological challenge for solar power that surges during the daytime in order to stabilize supplies to the grid.
Well, the real legacy is that it's really the driving wedge of a private sector-led investment initiative that can reshape the electricity sector in Egypt. This is just the very beginning. They have plans to bring out renewable energy. Private sector invested across the Red Sea and in wind and throughout the deserts for solar power.
Egypt has struggled to attract foreign investment outside the oil and gas sector, despite winning praise for an IMF-backed economic reform program since 2016. Last year, a report from the International Renewable Energy Agency suggested Egypt could be more ambitious in its green energy goals and aim to supply 53% of its electricity from renewables by 2030.
Now, staying with our breaking news, the federal government of Nigeria ordering the release of former National Security Advisor Sambo Dasuki and the owner of online media outlet Sahara Reporters Omoyele Sowore. Now, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, says the decision to release them was in compliance with the bill granted the two by the court. We now have joining us via phone Sony Iwanaga. He's a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Mr. Iwanaga, can the Attorney General order the DSS to release the convener of the Revolution Now protest, Omoyele Sowore?
Perfectly so.
Yeah.
Perfectly so. The Attorney General is the Chief Law Officer of the Federation. He's not just a minister in the executive, he's the Chief Law Officer of the Federation. Now, the office is specifically created under the Constitution. While the DSS is an arm of government that has to do with their security, we all know that any office created under the Constitution supersedes any other one. Now, the Attorney General, in directing this, is merely carrying out its functions as a Chief Law Officer. For the simple reason that even we all know, as lawyers, that if a prosecution, for instance, is in place and the Attorney General takes over, he has the right to discontinue the prosecution. No reasons need to be given, as long as the court is informed that, oh, this prosecution has been discontinued, for instance, by the Attorney General. The same way we remember that in respect of this matter, the same Attorney General was said to have directed the DSS to turn over the case file to him. But however, having done this, it is very, very important for us to know that as a Chief Law Officer, it is perfectly within his purview and prerogative to have ordered the release of this general. He doesn't need the permission of anyone to do that. It's a constitutional office, and I believe he's within the limits of his office carrying out his specific responsibility.
Yeah, Mr. Iwanaga, there have been court orders in the past that have been calling for the release of Omoyele Sowore. Why will the Attorney General's order be any different?
Well, the difference there is that this time around, for instance, all the while that was happening, It could be that I wouldn't want to say the people involved. Maybe they weren't aware of the consequences of what they are doing. But now that officially the chief law officer of the Federation has directed, it means that at least for the first time, we can see that the government itself is actually rising to the responsibility. Maybe initially they might have said, oh, that is not our business. The DSS is just a creation of state. They are doing their job. I don't want to interfere with them. Whatever they have seen that I haven't seen, it is wrong for me to do this. They are making sure that whatever they are doing has to do with the national interest. But the Attorney General haven't seen that these things, they have gotten to a stage where even both the integrity of the government is at stake and also the democracy that everybody has worked so hard for seems to be under threat due to this consistent flouting of the court abuses. Definitely has intervened at the right time and legally and rightly so.
Yeah, will this order finally see, will this order give the release also of Colonel Dasuki, the former security advisor?
Well, if the order was specifically directed to cover Colonel Dasuki, it must be obeyed. The simple reason there, the DSS was giving all this was that they were protecting these gentlemen, they were giving them protective custody, which is ridiculous. We have had so many stories somewhere saying, oh, we held this man so that he doesn't set himself on fire, or maybe these are things that we've had online, kind of. Maybe we held this man so that he wouldn't set himself on fire, or we held this man so that the public wouldn't run him over through a vehicle and all that. But I think officially, for the first time, the Attorney General is rising up officially to the occasion as a chief law officer. And I'm very sure of one thing, for the Attorney General to do this, there's no way anyone would tell me that it doesn't have the approval of the president. Because unlike overseas, for instance, where there's the offices, they are separate in America, for instance, and the Attorney General can do this and maybe go away without any sanctions. I'm sure the person here must have sounded out as a principal before doing this, and I'm sure he has the authority of the commander-in-chief before giving such a directive, because we know in the absence of that, maybe we'll be back to square one.
All right, Mr. Sony Iwanaga, thank you so much for joining us, legal practitioner there. Moving on to other stories now, Somali herdsmen and farmers are calling on their government and the international community to help them protect their crops. The country has been battling an invasion of desert locusts, which has left many without food to feed their families.
Abdullah Hassan is a worried man. He has 9 children to feed and relies on his herd of 100 goats to do so. But a massive plague of locusts in Somalia, which already destroyed tens of thousands of hectares of crops and pasture land, has now spread to Dusamareb, where Hassan currently lives. It's the worst invasion in 25 years.
The locusts have destroyed all of our pastures, and I'm very worried that my livestock will starve and die because these locusts are everywhere and are taking over the whole area.
The insects have destroyed 70,000 hectares of land in Somalia and neighboring Ethiopia, threatening food supplies on both countries and the livelihoods of farming communities. It's been made worse by unseasonably heavy rainfall and floods across East Africa in recent months. Experts say climate shocks are largely responsible for rapidly changing weather patterns in the region. Hassan and other farmers say they are doing what they can to fight back against the locusts. But with such vast numbers, they say they also need the help of the government and the international community.
Now, still to come on the program. It's Christmas Eve. We'll see how preparations are going in Ghana and Nigeria. Please stay with us.